This episode is brought to you in part by Samply. Samply makes the process of dealing with mix revision notes super easy. Make sure to check them out online at samply.app. And while you're there, get 3 months off any plan free by simply using the coupon code MYM at checkout. Hey, welcome to the Master Your Mix podcast. My name is Mike Indovina, and thanks for hanging out with me today. In today's episode, I'm interviewing Tyler Smyth, who is a Grammy-nominated producer, engineer, songwriter, who has worked with bands like I Prevail, Falling in Reverse, Fever 333, and his own band, Danger Kids. Tyler is one of my favorite producers that I've discovered in the last 5 years or so. And the reason why I love his productions is that they are just very entertaining. Like, they're very captivating. And when you listen to his mixes, like songwriting wise, his songs are great songs and they're very unusual. They don't always follow like a traditional songwriting formula that you would expect to hear on a hit song. He likes to do a lot of interesting things and make some decisions that you wouldn't expect. And that in itself creates this really cool way of pulling you into the songs. But then when you combine his knack for great songwriting with his mixing and production skills, that's where the magic really happens. And he likes to create what he calls moments. And he does that through his lyrics and through his songwriting, but also in the way that he infuses a lot of mixing techniques. He really does create this connection between the things you're hearing sonically with the emotions and the feelings that the lyrics are supposed to create for you. And I just think that that is a really, really interesting way of approaching music and mixing. And it's something that I guess I've always felt a connection to, and I've always kind of identified in my own productions. But I think he just does it so, so well. And he's obviously very intentional about it. And as you'll hear in this episode, he really digs into his process about, why he does things the way he does and the impact that he's hoping to create with all of these little details. So I think that this episode is very, very interesting, and it does a great job of combining that marriage of great songwriting with intentional mixing moves, and not just focusing on getting great drum sounds, but more importantly, how to make all of these instruments serve that intention of the song. So yeah, I just think this one is a really great episode. He has a very infectious energy, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. So with that said, let's just jump right into it. Tyler Smyth, thank you so much for being on the Master Your Mix podcast. What's going on, dude?
Dude, so much is going on. Thank you for having me. I'm really, this is a good time, I think, to be on this because I love talking about mixing. I'm very passionate about this stuff. I don't know, I just love it and I can talk all day about it. And I kind of think I'm on fire, bro. I just think I'm doing the best, my favorite, work of my life right now. Just mixing wise, especially. It's a good time. I'm very, I'm eager to be here. Thanks, man.
Love that, man. For people who might not be familiar with you and your work, like, can you give us that background on how you got into music production and kind of all the cool stuff that you're working on these days?
Yeah, happy to. I'll try to keep it brief. I honestly come from the touring world. I played in a bunch of different signed bands over the years, like different labels, or not labels. But yeah, I've been signed to I was in a pop band that was on Fearless Records for about 4 or 5 years called Let's Get It. I was in a rock band. Well, I still am in a band called Danger Kids. It was on Rise for a while. And we actually plan to be putting stuff out later this year. But let's see if I can pull that off. But it's funny, man. I used recording for 2 things, really. I was more passionate about my band and touring and getting my music off the ground. And I loved connecting with people. And so I wanted to be able to offer a skill. I wasn't great at graphic design. I wasn't like a social media person, but I could write songs and I was pretty sick with a computer. And I remember as I was growing up and I remember trying to get applying to all these jobs and nowhere would hire me, and recording became a job that I could do, that I could still take off work and play shows. And also it kind of kept me in the music world and helped me network. And so that blossomed very naturally into me being able to offer that skill to people, even on tour. So I would tour and I would make friends with the bands. And if I really, I'm a fan of there's so much good music out there and all these bands are incredible. And I would always be like, we should write a song. Oh, it'd be so cool. But I never thought about it beyond that, and I think over time I became, I don't know, I just like it. And I got competitive with myself at it in a way, and then at one point I moved to Los Angeles and I realized that and this was still my job, and I was still touring, and I was pretty nervous losing all my local clients and stuff. And like, I ended up I just thought it was going to be more cutthroat and competitive and like not. I found it to be the opposite. However, I moved here, instantly found a network of great people. There was tons of great bands. I really found my footing quickly and also gained a bit more confidence in my skills. I guess I just didn't. I started to think I was better than I realized, maybe, like not in any type of way, but just just a little bit of confidence grew in me where I was like, maybe, yeah, okay, maybe I can do what I did in Ohio, but in LA, and it'll be fine. And, and I can still, make people happy. That's really, because it doesn't work if you can't deliver for the band, and I guess I just thought everyone in LA was rich and that their dad owned like the recording studio or the label or something, but like, and I'm just not, I don't have any of that. But dude, it's like so the opposite. This whole place is filled with people just like me who are all trying to connect and network and get better and find, their footing and just find a space where they can do what they love. And so I really, really found a great family here and like a good home here for what I love to do and the clients that come through. And since then I've gotten to work on so much cool stuff. It's primarily in the rock and metal, hard rock space, but there's a few video games I've gotten to do stuff for. Like I do stuff for Sonic the Hedgehog, like those games for Sega, which is kind of cool. Mostly
That's
just
awesome.
rock songs, but I do I'll get to do like the theme song for the game or like for the villain, or I'll do all the boss fight music. It's really like a dream. And then I've a couple odd jobs that are really cool. Like, last year I got to do a job for NASA, which was like a joke of mine that became real. Cause I used to joke and for like years I would tell people that I was going to do a job for NASA one day or something. Cause I just always try to be like, Mr. like, you can do anything with music. Cause I really believe that. And then it happened. And that was freaking really cool. And I got to compose like the first song. I don't know if you remember, like, there was a cat video that got transmitted through deep space a while back. Maybe you didn't see it, but I did the music for that video, so I thought that was really cool. And there's like cats meowing in it, and I like recorded all my cats. Like one of my cats is behind me right now, and like I don't know, I like buried my animals, and my wife is in it, and I just kind of like peppered it in. I don't know, I just had fun with it, and like there's just these neat things I've gotten to do. But I think that's a big, long, expansive rundown on my history, the work I've done, and also hopefully just you get a little bit of an idea, like, I don't know, just how much I care about this stuff and how fun it is. And like, that's why mixing is so cool. I just think to anyone listening or watching, it's like, this is such a great career. It really is. And I know that there's at least a handful that are like, I bet it is if I can get it off the ground. But I just want to be that voice to tell you that you can absolutely get it off the ground. It's like, again, it's so specialized. And it's like, if you love it, if you have fun doing it straight up, then given enough time, or maybe even not a whole lot of time, you're going to get so good at it because you just can't compete with people who love to do it. You know what I mean? So if you can just, not worry about the finish line, like crossing any type of finish line. The problem with goalposts is you're going to move them back. If you just acknowledge that you love music and you love mixing and and it's cool to hear the sound do different things and really understand your tools, like you're in a very specialized field with actually a very wide array of applications. And I think you can do not just one of them, but several of them. I mean, that's what I'm having so much fun with in my job these days. So, yeah, I don't know. That's a long answer and also vaguely inspirational, but like, yeah, mixing is awesome. And I'm really glad that I've ended up just where I am and doing what I'm doing. It's so cool. And it's enabled me to, be on cool podcasts and talk about something I love so much.
That's awesome, man. Well, you can hear it in your voice. You can tell you're like super passionate about it and excited. And I think that it's like, it's so cool that for you, like you get to do so many different things, like the video game music or the metal music or whatever it is. Like you get to work on a lot of different projects, and I know that as a songwriter, like you must enjoy that part where it's like there's no boundaries at all with the stuff. It's like you can kind of go wherever. Which kind of made me think of a question that I wanted to ask you, which was that like I know as a songwriter, like one of the things that I love about your music is that you're not afraid to stretch boundaries. Like you don't necessarily follow like a hit song formula. And I think that that's something that a lot of people, especially because you're working on label work, like a lot of people feel like it needs to follow a certain sound or be a certain way. But when I listen to your music, it's like there's so many twists and turns, which I love about that, and it keeps like the music exciting. So I'm curious to like dive into your songwriting process a little bit, and like I've even heard you say that like some of your favorite work is the stuff that you're trying to do that's outside of the box and that isn't formulaic or whatever.
Yeah, always. I mean, I can tell a very quick story, which is that I think will help put it in perspective, which is when I had toured for a long time and I basically had decided to quit touring and quit music. And I was like, you know what? I did this. I went out there and tried. I'm going to get a job and get this steady paycheck and all this stuff. And I thought this is going to be like the better way. And I went back to school for creative writing in college. And I remember thinking, I'm going to love when we get to the unstructured part of my program, like unstructured poetry and unstructured creative writing, because there's no rules. What I found was the total opposite. I found that when there's no rules, there's definitely like cool stuff in all of it. Don't get me wrong. But I found that I am 100,000,000,000,000,000,000% a much, much bigger fan of structured poetry. And it gave me a way to be fascinated with someone's work. Does that make sense? Like we all are working with the same rule set. Like you and I are writing sonnets, all right? So it's got to have a certain rhyme structure. I kind of forget. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G, I think. It's something like that. And it has to have iambic pentameter. It has to have the exact amount of syllables. But we can say whatever we want inside of those rules. It's so much easier for me to hear your beautiful work and appreciate it because I know that. It's almost like knowing what you had to go through, or like, I found the opposite was true. So now you fast forward to composition, which is really what we're talking about here, which is like, and composition is cool because although it largely encompasses like song structure, it also 100% has to do also with just mixing and just producing, because I call it creating moments. That's the term that I use with bands a lot. And there's just these words I've just invented this vocabulary that I attribute to be able to explain my style to someone else quickly. But I always call it like creating a moment. So I'll be like, oh, we need to like pull the rug out of the listener from right here. And usually that's just coming from me listening to the song and going, okay, I'm bored now. Like, you know what I mean? And I think it's hard because most producers or mixers or writers or wherever you are in the process, whatever task they've given you, it all usually comes down to some degree of the same thing, which is, hey, help me make this into a song, right? Whether you're mixing or you're changing composition or you're writing lyrics, it's all pushing it towards the same finish line. So like, I like to just be it's like, to me, that became my way of sticking out. I'm a drop D kid, right? Like I'm a rhythm guitar player. I can't shred too much, but I'm sick. Like I've toured a lot. I've played a lot of live shows. I can record extremely clean in the studio. Like I am good at what I'm good at. Does that make sense? But I'm not a lead player. I'm not a shredder. But like what I used to grief myself over it because I'm in drop D and I'd be like open 8, 10, 5, 3, 2, I don't know. Like what are all the things that, 8, 7, 1, 0, like, I don't know. It's like after you've done so many of the things, I started griefing myself. Oh, I always write that. I always do that. And I did that for years, man. Like swam uphill, like against the current, like really just giving myself, like creating unnecessary rules, like drop D sucks now, or like, or something, when in reality, everyone's still, but it's weird, right? We get in our heads. So all these epiphanies are related. That's the reason why I wanted to say them, was just that like, I started to lean into it. I started to think, well, what if, because I'm just so naturally stoked on it and it just does something for me every time, what if I'm just better at drop D than someone who isn't obsessed with it? And it's like, if I can't escape it, why not just stay in it or lean into it? And I started doing that across the board, and literally my life changed. So to answer your question and bring that all the way up to speed with like my song composition and how you say like, by the way, thank you, by the way. That's like, to me, a huge compliment because I don't know. I want people to notice those things. That's why I do it. I do it because it sticks out, you know? And so that's the pop meeting the like going against the rules in me, right? There's the me that wants to do the unstructured poetry. Like there's the me that believes that there should be like, okay, let's make a hit song with a chorus that is memorable. But can we not also make a statement in the song? Like, can the song live in both worlds? I think it can. I don't know how familiar you are with my work, but like I can very easily divvy my work up into these categories. Like I would take a song like Bow Down is funny because that's a good example to me and maybe one that more people might know from I Prevail. Like I would never call that a hit song. I would call that a statement song. That's why it's the first track on the album. The whole purpose of the song is to exceed expectations, right? It's not really meant to be catchy, but can't it also have a catchy chorus, you know? Like it can live in both worlds. And then you have a song like totally different, you know, band that I do, but falling into verse. I think there's a song that we did called Voices in My Head that I think is like the epitome of a hit radio song. Also, I would even argue it still does a good job of not compromising. But the goal with that song was to create earworms. The whole song goes, the voices in my head keep on da-da-da-da-da. And then the verse is, voices in my head. You know, and it's like, Ronnie's such a good vocal writer, right? He's such a good vocalist. And so he comes up with these melodies. And we are purposefully trying to create something that is an inescapable hook. But this is the same artist and the same person who will do a song like Watch the World Burn, which has no chorus and is like 2 minutes of rap that turns into like a punk thing that ends up us doing like what at the time was like the heaviest breakdown I'd ever done. But like in the context of the song, you can't even tell how actually ridiculously heavy it is even because that part feels so like poppy, even though it's not because there's no structure. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's this, I think if you do it with care and you do it with intention, that people can say that they don't like something, but they can't say that it's bad or that it sucks. Even if they will, it's like, that's why those people will argue against them. Even people who don't like it will argue. I see it in Ronnie's comments all the time. Like, or like hate, they're like, okay, well, even I don't really like the guy, but this is just insane, bro. Like people will comment that on people because it's just, it is well done, like period, you know, end of story. If you don't like it, I acknowledge that. It's pretty bombastic. It's kind of not trying to make you like it. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I think a rock fan, notices that. And so I just think there's a respect layer that forms because people, you know, you said it yourself, you saw it and you have a respect because you go, well, here's a producer who's winning, but not necessarily he's kind of doing something cool. And so that makes me happy, right? Because it's like, I would like to see more, I too, really, me, Tyler, would like to see more, you know, like unique voicing out there, you know? And it's like, everyone's got it. And it's like, I get it. You get the platform. Maybe it's easier for someone like me who feels like, now where I'm at in my career, I'm going to get many runs at it and stuff. So it gets easier to be bold. But you know, like the thing that really blew the door open for all of us was, well, I mean, it was a lot of things all at once, but a lot of things happened in like 2018 and 2019 that led to Popular Monster and led to Trauma. And those were big risks at the time, the whole time. Even us with I Prevail, it's like it's easy now to look back and be like, yeah, it is really creative but we knew it was creative. We didn't know if it was going to work. No one knew what the future of the sound was. Like no one, you know, they arguably didn't sound like that before that album. So there's a risk there. I mean, they were known for Come and Get It. They were known for the Taylor Swift cover. I got the task of doing the sophomore slump. You know, it's like there was a lot to lose. And there was a lot of me that could have just done a, you know, rock radio album for them. But I wanted it to be more than that. And I kind of thought that was the best way to win, was to not compete. You know, the first album did so well. It did what it did so well. Why would if I compete with that, something loses, you know, like the first album loses or the new album loses, or I don't know, like the band, you know, it's like, and so how do you do those things? How do you change without changing, right? Without alienating your fans or being a different band? How do you, and so there is an art to it, but at the same time, like, I think that there's a lot of just built in, like having the audacity to just do the thing in the first place starts a chain reaction of things, you know, if you execute it hard, you know what I mean? Like I always tell them, I'm like, if we're going to go, we go all the way, like all the way. Like when we're like, you know, Ronnie watched the world burn, and Ronnie's like, you know, we had done a radio hit into a radio hit into a radio hit, and they had all sat at number one, like over and over again. And Ronnie was the one that was like, what am I going to do, bro? Another one, you know, zombified, voices in my head. We just do it again, you know? And it's like, even he was like, no, I got all these people saying I suck, saying I don't know what I'm doing, saying I can't rap, saying, and he's like, so I was like, yeah, okay. That's our play. No hit at all, you know? And I have a theory, like, really big artists do that on purpose too, which is a different conversation we can have sometime. But I have a theory that's why Fall Out Boy broke up. I have a theory that's why Panic breaks up. I have a theory that's why Katy Perry's album After Teenage Dream was so different. It's like, and did really poorly, and everyone's like, oh, she's washed up. No, bro, so Teenage Dream, every single song hit number one, and it hit like world records for female artists, period. You know, like most number one, most singles, what are you going to follow it with? You know, because if you follow it with the same thing, you lose, because you lose to nostalgia. And if you know, it's like, so I do think you have to go away to come back sometimes, you know, it's like, you just have to, you know, fall to rise, and you have to like dip the plunge, or, you know, it's like, it's just how these things work. And so, yeah, having a more macro lens helps you to make bolder choices, you know. It's like, act like you're in the fucking driver's seat, you know, like act like you ain't just gonna be here for, sorry if I curse, by the way, I don't.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah. It runs deep with me, but like these bands, you know, now I get these bands that are big, and so if anything, I'm instilling in them this confidence to be themselves, and I try to act more like a mirror than anything, and just kind of like show them why they are sick, and why they're here, and why they deserve to be here, right? And like take my self and my ego out of it. I bring that actually into the mixing layer, like we're here to talk about, and into the production layer. But when it's the songwriting layer, I'm really trying to exploit all the things that make that artist cool and excite them, because I want them to say the words that they are gonna feel fucking awesome when they say on stage. You know, it's like, I don't want them to say some things that you know, it's like, I'm helping with everything, don't get me wrong, but it's like, I do think I'm good at keeping my compass pointed the right way. And when you get people riled up and you get that confidence, you start doing some crazy stuff, you know. Maybe it's just me, I seek those things, you know, like. And by the way, I love a straight hit. That's what I'm saying. To me, Voices in My Head is a straight hit. Yes, it has a banging breakdown, which arguably takes it out of like pop realm, but like, it's still a hit, baby. It's like, it's a hit for rock and metal kids, you know. It's like, and that's me. I used to always joke with I Prevail. I used to always say I wanted to be like the Michael Bay of rock music. I was like, I want to be the guy that is like known for doing too much, like too many lens flares, bro. Like too many, you know, sound effects and stuff. Like but that's just what I like. I like drama, and I like, yeah, just
but I think it comes across in what you're talking about, and to me, like the word that you said that sticks out and that I feel is moments. And like, you know, I the first time I ever heard that expression used, like my band got to work with a guy named Tom Jackson, who's like a live music producer. That's what he calls himself. And so he works with like all the big pop acts or whatever. And his thing is like, I'll take a 3-minute song and make it a 15-minute long song if we need to, as long as like we're creating those
as long
moments
as it's
where
sick,
people,
yeah,
as long as it's sick, as long as people are like glued into the song and they're there, you know. And so, but that's what I do hear in your music, is that like, it's not just following those typical like A-B kind of structures, you know. They're like, you may think you're going there and then it goes somewhere completely different. And then
exactly.
but that area that goes different is like such a memorable part. And so I see what you're saying there about like, those when you do step outside of the box, you still want to make it sound catchy. You still want it to be like a thing people feel, and it doesn't have to follow a traditional thing. Hey, just want to take a quick second to tell you all about our awesome podcast sponsor, Samply, which is an app that I've been using for a while now that has made the process of mix revisions with clients so much easier. In the past, I used to get vague emails from clients about what sections needed fixing, and it was always a bit of a guessing game. But with Samply, I can upload my mixes, send my clients a link to a playlist where they can listen losslessly, and then they can add timestamped comments directly on the files. I can then import these notes into my DAW and have them perfectly synced up to my session, so there's no more guessing. Another feature that I love is their playlist embedding. Right now on my website, I have a lossless playlist of my portfolio so that any potential client can hear my work at full quality. No more crappy sounding, low resolution MP3 files. Instead, people can hear my work at its best. And the icing on the cake? Samply integrates with a ton of different services. And one of my favorite integrations is their integration with SoundFlow. With just one click, Samply can export my mix from my DAW, upload it to Samply, and then send my clients an email for where they can hear their song. One button, that's all it takes. It's a major time saver. So Samply has really streamlined my workflow, and I know that they can do it for you too. So make sure to check them out online at samply.app. And you can get 3 months off any Samply plan for free by simply applying the coupon code MYM at checkout.
Yeah, it's just a tool in your toolbox. Like some songs really benefit, like some concepts and genres really lend themselves to crazier, more bombastic thinking and stuff, and some don't. Like you actually prompted me to go and pull up Trauma because I haven't looked at this in a while, but I remember the songs. I remember it was the first album where like we were so proud of how Razor, like everything felt tight, right? Like we felt like all fat was trimmed. The song, everything extra was awesome and kept because it was awesome. And I am looking at it now and it's right. There's so many short songs, not all of them, but there's like, I'm going to call out some of the shorter ones, but like, and I'll ignore interludes and stuff, but like, Paranoid's the short 224, 233, 304, 245, 304 again. 316, but I remember Bow Down was the only song. It's at 402, but all of us were like, nah, dude, like it doesn't, what do you cut? It's sick.
There's nothing to cut.
It feels like a roller coaster, and we just loved the ride. And we tried, Bow Down is funny because it's one of the first ones we had, and it was one of the last ones we finished, which is so funny, but nothing really changed in it. We just kept trying. I remember trying every opening line we could think of, just to come all the way back to the chorus hook, right? Because at the time we were like, do we give away the hook or do we? Because we always felt like one of the big magic moments of the song was the re-intro after the first chorus, right? When you get to see the chorus reconnect into the concept of Bow Down and you get the da-da, da-da, and the pause hits. To us, that was always like, okay, we got him. From then on, not only are they listening and they're all ears, but I have a theory, by the way, that like, and maybe this would play into mixing really well, but I have a theory that if you can upset somebody's sensibilities like two times maybe, or on the second or third time, they surrender to the song. Like something really awesome happens and they just stop trying to guess what's going to happen. Because they've just been wrong 3 times in a row now. There's probably a minute left on the song. You know what I mean? Or a minute and a half. Maybe they're halfway through. I don't know. But like, what happens is people surrender to the song. And I think it becomes more of an experience. And then, I've got all these theories about my work, right? I always wanted to end and start in a really impressive... I mean, dude, I can go all day about this stuff. Like, I believe how a song ends tells you how to feel about it, whether or not you realize it. So... not only is it purposeful that Bow Down ends like bow down, bow down, bow down, hard cut, but it goes into the next song on the album, also by design by me, so fast and on beat, by the way, but so fast that you don't even get to take a breath or think because the next thing starts. So you don't get to go, how do I feel about what just happened? Was it good? What was my favorite? And because that ruins it, dude. I'm telling you, it's like you have to be under a spell. And there's a reason why people like listening to my albums as albums too. You know, it's like, if you look at these, you know, I have Trauma pulled up. It's like every song has like 50 million plays or something. It's like people don't just listen to one or two songs is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that's so cool. And that's so hard to do too. I mean, how many experiences exist like that? So yeah, I don't know. It's like these are all just things that I've picked up along the way. And you can see how this complicates the process and makes the work take a long time. But I think I just really like doing it this way. I like making, like, you know, if it's a sculpture, mine's fucking fancy as shit, dude. You know what I mean? It's just cool and ornate and different. And it's like, I don't know. I want to surprise myself too, man. You know, it's like really all it is. Like, I just found out that I love this, and I haven't found that out, you know, probably 10 years ago, but like I've been doing this for like, you know, 15 years now. And I would say as a self-proclaimed producer, way much less. Like, I wouldn't have even called myself a producer probably 7 years ago. You know, I would have said I was in a band, you know, or something, but like, it's so cool, man. And as a mixer too, how cool, like you get to join everyone's band essentially. And isn't it neat? Like you're not only like shaping their tonality, you know, think of like Ross Robinson and people like that who like produced for things that sounded way different than each other. You know, it's like, I'm always blown away by mixers who can develop sounds for bands like that. It's just, wow.
Absolutely.
You know? And so there's just so much in the art itself to appreciate and to do and explore. And I think I have fun with those, right? I like taking the things that I love from other genres and injecting it into rock, and then using all my mixing skills and all my tools, and knowing that I can cut this and dip this down to bring it up loud, and knowing how to make the chorus punch, and you know, it's like you put all that together and you can just, you get something really bespoke and cool. And yeah, dude, absolutely. You can tell. I know I'm talking in circles. It's like you're asking a question and I'm ending it with like, bro, I'll end it with this. I'm sorry. I'll just say that I can't escape who I am. This is just how I am. You guys, I apologize. And anyone who's worked with me or knows me or has had a conversation with me knows this is exactly how I am. It's like the ADD mixed with the, like, it's like I'm love drunk on what I do, man, you know? So anyways, yeah. So I'll try to keep it coherent, but you guys, it's going to be a little rambly, but it comes from a good place.
We're going to go for a ride here. It's all good.
Yeah.
No, but it kind of all makes sense. Like hearing you describe your philosophies on like writing music and how it comes into mixing, like, I'm now starting to piece together some of the cool things that you've done, like with the intentions, like a song like Bow Down, like, you know, like to me, that's a song where like when it starts, it's like there's a lot going on, you know, you got the kind of like the track in the background, and then it gets really heavy and intense, and like, but then there's like the part where it's like dun-na, dun-na-na-na, right? And there's like the hard cut, and that hard cut is a moment in itself, you know, like totally. That silence is something that like creates, like it takes you out of like this like noise space.
Oh,
to, like,
of course.
That split second of silence is like, what the fuck? And then you get back into it and it hits you even harder. So
yeah.
To me, it's like, it's cool to hear your philosophy on like writing songs and having like those moments in them. But also I'm starting to kind of piece together some of the ways that you mix with those moments as well, which is really cool.
I basically approach everything just looking for drama. Like I love automation, dude. I love when things feel alive. I have everything in my templates, like, you know, but I have everything set up in a way where it's very controlled. Like, even if everything is like routed and I can, you know, into groups eventually, like if I want to kill just the verb on this one thing, I can do it pretty effortlessly and that just comes with, you know, making songs a lot for many years and kind of learning what things you like to do, right? And like, I know I like this trick or that trick, so I try to have it like readily available for me. So yeah, it's neat, man. But the composition, I mean, that's a good example actually of composition and mixing just really coming together perfectly. Bow Down would not be the song it is at all without that pause and without that cut. And we totally knew that. I mean, dude, I can give you a quick rundown of how all that stuff came to be and it'll make perfect sense. Like, I said I was a rhythm player. I remember that was the first day I wrote with I Prevail, we wrote Hurricane. And that was both of us, our first #1 song ever. And the next day, Eric was there, the screamer. He was not there the first day. So we did a much more singy, Brian type of song. And then the next day it was Eric was there, and I didn't want him to think that I only did like singy stuff. So I was like super overcompensating, and I was like, dude, I can do heavy stuff too. Watch, I can, you know, because I wasn't the producer at this point. I'm just writing songs with my friends. And I remember like, I was like trying to think like outside the box, like what's the heaviest, most disgusting thing? And I'm a rhythm player. So I was like hammering on the note, and I remember, dude, I think the most like FU energy is something that's like atonal, and like, so I I detuned it while I was going, and I was like, oh, that's sick. And then once I had it down, I like did the curve kind of digitally to make sure it was perfect each time. And then once I had the cut in and I saw that, I was like, bam, there it is. And if you look at a lot of the breakdowns that I'm a part of writing, they're very like that. They start as like rhythms, like they almost more like rap beats, like hits. Like I'll write like a part will be like 5, 6. I'll go dun, 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 and I'll just start with open hits, and then I'll kind of go back in later and I'll like move them around, or I'll go dun, 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 dun. You know, I just start to like, it's like a rough draft and then another draft and then another draft, but it's all very much like not a rhythm player or like a techie person, what a techie player would do, you know? A techie person would be like, da 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 da, and they'd be doing like da 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 da, all this like stuff. My stuff's way more like a mood or something that hits you in the chest. So it's like that stuff. Once I started to acknowledge that about myself, by the way, this is around the time that I'm starting to learn those things about myself. And like, yeah, I'm just like, that's what I like to write. And that's what really excites me. I became less excited personally by like chugga-chuggy breakdowns. I think just because I've done them or maybe it's just due for some reinvention a little bit. There's always room for stuff, you know? And you can make it exciting. You can put production and stuff. But yeah, I'm like big into hits and just like bold, you know, we were trying to come up with a bold part on their new album. And I remember thinking like, dude, that stuff matters. Like, and that's mixing, by the way, big time mixing. Like you're looking for drama. When I'm mixing, it's more like part editing too. I mean, because I don't know, to me, they're just a little bit one and the same. Like, and I don't mean like editing the vocal might be edited. Let's just presume it is. But I mean like, sometimes you can get a more dramatic effect by literally cutting every single word out, you know, like actually Bow Down's a really good example. They're like, not just for the effect of having a hard cut in the song, but the vocals go bow, hard cut, da, and they come back on, and they are right on the beat. So that I'm telling you, if I just left it the way Eric screamed it and didn't carve out that space, the effect is lost. And I would even say the same thing is true when you don't even do hard cuts. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with like the first song on the new album is called There's Fear in Letting Go. And at the end of the first chorus, he screams the tag once before it goes into the second verse. He goes, there's fear in letting go. Ba-na-na-na-na. And if you listen to that, when he screamed it, it was one thing. When you cut every single syllable, fear, fade out, fade back in, out, back in, let, out, in, like, dude, whole different experience. You know what I mean? Now all of a sudden, it's like someone's taking the fader and going, wah, 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 like right in your face. It has 10 times the attitude, right? But what's cool is it just comes across to the listener as, whoa, Eric killed it. Like, Eric sounds dope. Eric screamed, and he did kill it, you know? But your job as producer, your job as mixer is to squeeze all that juice out, you know? And those little changes do everything. It's almost like once you do it once, you'll go, oh, fuck, now I have to do it a lot because it sounds so good. And you're just creating all this work that you can't escape because you can't go back. Because once you go forward, you're like, it just sounds better. It just does. And it's like going from auto-tune to like really graph tuning to like really comping, like really putting every syllable on beat. And like, you better believe on Trauma, every single syllable is on beat. Every breath is on beat. Everything's carved out and everything, every album. But that's the difference maker, you know, like then I'm willing to sit there and do that. And like, and I actually I had a lot of help with trauma from one of my good friends, Julian. And, but I mean, since he has stopped helping me, I haven't had any help with editing. I just went back to doing it all myself. But, yeah, it's like, cause those things matter, and it just takes so long to teach someone how to be an A++, S+ tier, editor or mixer, or even like getting part of it. It's really hard. And I could do it. I just haven't, I end up hiring people and then not being happy with the work. And then everyone kind of loses because I have to pay them. And so it's out of my pocket. And then I have to also tell them, hey, by the way, I'm not actually going to be using it. I'm so sorry. But like, you just have to, I pretty much always am in defense of the art, like the work. I just don't really care who's, feelings I hurt. Usually it's the bands. Usually it's like, they're in on it too. Like, we're doing it together. But when at the end of the day, it's like, my firm belief is that, yeah, if you put it all towards making the best song, sometimes even if it's like a note that the singer is afraid of hitting and stuff, I'm like, if there's not any other even close, like on par decision, it's got to be the better choice. And you've just got to learn as a singer to hit that note, or I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, figure out a way to deliver for your fans, because it has to go this way. It's like, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, you choose, like what your North Star is as a mixer or a producer. And I just believe if I truly value the art, and I mean at the expense of my pocketbook too, and the bands, and like, if I could be like if I could put out the amount of work that some of the other producers around me do, I would be much less stressed out in my life. But I don't know, man, it doesn't work for me or something. Like, this is what works for me, right?
Yeah.
I've just accepted I'm the guy that needs to sit there until I feel like I've tried everything. Bow down, really, we just sat there and tried everything.
But that's an interesting point to bring up too, because I know that that's something a lot of like my mixing students suffer from, which is that like they feel the need to try everything, and by all means, like, do whatever is going to serve the song. But there's like that quest for perfection versus knowing when a song is ultimately done, and like determining what the best way is, right? So like, how do you balance that, like that quest of perfection versus like knowing when to just call something done and being like, okay, this is the best version of it, as opposed to like spending days working on more and more revisions of it?
Dude, this is such an awesome question. I think this is a quest I'm still on, but here's the one sentence answer to it first is I would work really, really, really hard to become confident in my tastes, like really trust myself. And guys, it gets so much easier as time goes along. But in the beginning, if you're like me, I guess, because that's the only perspective I have. Like, I'll say this jokingly, but I also think that there's truth in it. I'm from Ohio, so I'm very Midwest. I didn't move out to LA till like my mid-20s. And I have just pretty much always pushed away giving myself any amount of credit or confidence with something. It's only in the past 4 years probably that I've actively started to try to acknowledge things about myself and go, Tyler, you're good at this, and just made myself sit there with it and internalize it. I say that because if you can really start to trust your tastes, by the way, saying you're good at something, I'm saying this for those, if you're like me, this is the internal dialogue I have, because I was rejected, because it's not just me. There's a lot of people, there's the band, I didn't do it alone, thank you, but I didn't do it. But like, I'm trying to be more like, thanks, I did work really hard on it, and my wife will tell you, and like, and so if you can get confident in your tastes, what happens is you get a little better each time at discerning between the feeling of, okay, I've tried a couple things and this is absolutely the best way to go. I'm going to go this way, boom, which is to, that's the healthy version, right? It's like, your tastes, you have this one thing that works. I'm going to try this. I have this idea. Nah, it didn't really work. I have this idea. Nah, it didn't really work. Okay, now I know for sure, back to the first thing, boom. That's like the healthy version. And then there's a version that becomes like diminishing returns where you don't quite have the confidence in yourself because you're not able to discern between the feeling of, I got to try everything, and the feeling of, you know what, this thing that it is just isn't it. Like, that's what you have to answer. If the thing you've picked is pretty good and you try some other things and they're just not it, then you got to go. But if there's like, if you're just still not happy, then you just still haven't found it, bro. I mean, that's why I haven't put out a Danger Kids song in so long. My band, it's like, we've had fans that are still like eager. It's been like 7 years. I know this is off topic, but what I realized until recently is I've made all these songs for a follow-up album, but none of them are the right comeback song. And they're great album songs, but it's true. They're not, it's been too many years. It's an actual comeback at this point after being basically broken up for so long. And I realized that I just wasn't happy with those songs as comeback songs. And that's why I was dragging my feet. It was like subconscious, but now that it becomes conscious because now I do have the song, right? That I can't wait. And that I definitely know it's the first song come back. And I know it's the first song to come back because when I made it, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to put this out. Like, our fans are gonna flip waffles over this because it's got everything they want, plus a bunch of new stuff they're not gonna expect. But it feels like my band. And so that it's hard to discern that very specific feeling. But I would say listen to something and go, try to ask yourself, try to just, determine between this isn't right or this is right. Because if there's a feeling in you that this isn't right, that's why you're dragging your feet. You just haven't acknowledged it, that you haven't found it yet. And that's okay. Yeah. But if you found it and you're just trying other stuff, yeah, I mean, I saw Dustin Kensrue from Thrice when I was really young, and he was talking about songwriting, and he said that your first inclination is usually the best and usually the strongest. And so try to use that to wrap it up as quickly as possible. You know what I mean? If you get something and it right away works, and maybe it's even kind of strong, like if you know, just go. You don't have to try everything just to try everything. Like I do that all the time. If I just know, then no, I'm not trying other things. But if I'm like, dude, I think this is it, but it's not, like, for example, I think this is the vocal melody, but you can't be 100% sure because you don't have the words yet. So all you can do is think that it's right. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's a good example of where you might want to just have a little faith that it's going to come through and work out in the end and move on, because you go, well, you're never going to love it. You're never going to love it until it's recorded with all the harmonies and it's edited and you play it back and you go, I was right, And that's where people get hung up. That's why people don't finish songs, by the way. It's because it's hard to turn that part of your brain off and just keep going. It's hard to go because you record that first line and you right away start asking yourself, you go, I don't know. Is this good? I don't know. I do this every time. I do this with freaking superstars, bro. Like I'm recording, I don't want to name drop, or I won't. I just won't. But I'm recording people that are like idols of mine. And of course I want it to be good. Even though I'm not the artist, I'm sitting there going, is this good? But dude, it's them playing. It's not, and so it's like, you got to start to simplify the problem. That's what I always tell myself. It's like when I'm tracking vocals, I go, is it what we talked about in the room? Yes. Okay. Well, you have to trust your past self that when you talked about it in the room, you arrived on the best decision. And so I just go, okay, well, is it in tune? Yeah, pretty good. Is it on time? Yeah, it's pretty good. It's not perfect. Nothing's perfect, but that's your job right now. When you're recording, your recording hat is this a good take? The previous hat was, is this how the part should go? Right. And so I just try to, maybe that's another piece of advice, is to try to separate those jobs a little bit and like compartmentalize just slightly, just mentally, really, so that you can turn off those parts of your brain. When you're writing the lyrics, When you're writing the melody, do just that. And yeah, you're going to revise it as you sing it and it comes out and you go, actually, this word sings a little better. Cool. That's not what I'm talking about, because you're not changing the concept. The concept is what the song is called, right? The concept is Bow Down. So the concept is a song where it's like a rebirth, and we're talking about a band that, we're not the same band that you thought you knew. And, these are the conversations that we have in the room with I Prevail. So we're like, this is a cool song. It's exciting for the fans. It's great first track material. This is just concept, right?
Yeah.
Not even knowing what it sounds like. It's like all of those things have to line up and have to have intention. And I'm all for the old way of doing it too. I mean, I've done lots of sessions where we both sit with a guitar in our hands and I strum this and you strum that and we go, that's the way. And like, But to me, that's a bit uninspired these days. It's a lot more of like a way of writing a song. I mean, mixing's the same way. I have way less of a formula to my mixes now. Like people like to ask, I get asked this all the time in like emails and stuff, is like, what's my process? Like, do you do top-down mixing? And it's always funny because it's always phrased in all these ways, and I don't even know what all these ways are. And I'm just like, I love that though, because this is clearly a young dude. He's got his ear to the ground. He wants to be great. He's reading a lot of literature, and I would love for him to get his hands dirtier too. It's like, I don't know, pick one, like I have tricks that I do to help me get started when I can't get started that I think would qualify as mixing tricks, like when I'm really, if it's something like, let's say it's a genre or something, or it's like, I just had nothing to do with the song and the genre, and I just really don't know. I'll do the like white noise trick sometimes. I don't know if you've probably seen that, but where you just kind of play some white noise or some pink noise. And I personally, I have a big volume knob here, but I just turn my volume all the way down because I just need to see the graph. And actually with this one, I guess you have the volume set as low as possible, like as quiet as you can hear the white noise. And you just do that thing where you raise each mixer until you barely hear it and stop, And then at the end, you unmute the pink noise and you've got like basic starting levels, right? But that's if you don't have a reference or like that's like what I would do if I literally had no trust or faith in myself to musically do something. You know what I mean? Like most of the time like, it's a song is a song, and I just listen to it like music and stuff. But it's tough to answer because I definitely have tricks and techniques, but most of it is me bouncing around chasing those feelings that I was talking about, and like
Absolutely
looking for that juice, like I hit play and yeah, man, it's like when the chorus hits, I'll be like, no, that was way too lazy. It just like slides on into the chorus. I'm like, no, we got to drop in with intent, So from a mix standpoint, I'll start looking at like, okay, maybe I'm bumping the kick drum and the cymbals to hit a little harder. Maybe the impact's just bangs a little harder there. Maybe there's a little bit of a like something that makes you hold your breath before the impact, It doesn't have to be on some genres, like, bow, that, like we're trying to be dramatic. Hard cut makes perfect sense. But what if it's just, what if I'm doing the Killers or something, It's like, we're not trying to be dramatic to the point that it's distracting, right? You don't want to distract from Brendan Flowers doing his thing. You want the head nod to go the whole time. It's like that's a whole different type of mixing and a whole different type of art form for it. And just as valid, if not more so. It's like...
Yeah. To me, it almost seems like you assign each song almost its own mission statement. It's like, what are we trying to do here?
That's a wonderful way of putting it. I do that out loud with the artist though, because I don't like, here's an example actually that you're right. And I've never actually thought about it that way or had it said back to me that way. So that's neat. But you are right. I value the concept so much. The truth is I'm really happy with my level of mixing now. I used to be like really unhappy, and I used to think best snare wins, like best drum sound gets all the jobs, right? But I realized that's straight up, flat out not true. However, yes, there's truth to like a good sounding mix is going to get more eyes and ears and get more, but it's not even close to the end game. The end game is entirely mental, entirely. It's like, who has the best idea? Like, good sounding is a lot of things. Like, to me, it might be, a really hi-fi rock mix where I forego any sense of realism in favor of trying to tell the biggest, most dramatic story possible, right? It's like a movie. It's like I'm not trying to recreate reality at all. I'm trying to give a heightened reality, right? I'm trying to do a Christopher Nolan song or something. I'm not worried about the snare sounding like it was played off of a Black Beauty in a small room with good treatment. I just don't care. I want the song to fucking bang and just make me feel something. And whatever that thing is. And so it matters to me so much that we agree on what that thing is. And so what's neat is that's even how I'm doing a lot of my remote work now. Like, I became a dad a little over a year ago, right? To my daughter. And
congrats, that's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, she's so sweet. Her name's Summer, and she's the best. And She's already written 2 songs with me, and I got a little video proof of it. So
Amazing.
I'm gonna start cutting her in as a writer on these things. If any band ends up using them, I'm gonna be like, yo, I have proof. She was here. She wrote the progression, right? It is kind of funny because I have like these templates set up with all these like cool VSTs and all these like MIDI plugins that basically force it into certain keys and BPMs, and almost like you can't mess up, you know? So she comes in and mashes keys and it'll like do good musical stuff. And I just have it all set so I can just change the instrument and like, so it does actually end up, being a vaguely cohesive thing, so it's like a fun exercise to see like what I might, get out of it or whatever.
Love that.
But again, that's actually to my point. I love the process. I'm obsessed with the process. To me, the creative process is everything. And that I think goes back to what you said about my work. And it makes me so happy that you feel like, at least on some level, that is reflected in the stuff I do. It's like, I try to be creative in the composition. I try to be creative in the mixing. I try to be creative in the songwriting and in the concept. And then what's the interplay between all those things? Like, what mix-wise can I do to make a lyric sting even more, if that's what it's trying to do? Or like, again, not to use the cut as a option, but the last song on their most recent album, it's called True Power, and I love it. It's like, one of my all-time favorite things I've ever done. And the last song ends really cool on the album. But he talks about, what's the lyric? Everybody prays when their time is borrowed, but never for the time they've got. And then he says, yeah, and everyone sings like there's no tomorrow until the music stops. And then it stops. And the whole thing stops. And it just sits in silence. And you go, and there's this effect of like, it like forces you to reflect on what just happened. And you know what I mean? It's like you said, it's the same feeling that cut gave you, but it has a different purpose. So there's a different outcome. There's like a, ooh, and then the chills set in and you like, oh my gosh, it really makes that lyric sting, like, I guess back to what I was doing. But sometimes that's not even the purpose. It's like, and it's not always a cut, right? It's like, I do reverse. There's a whole chorus I did that's just Brian with a vocoder, and there's no drums or guitars or vocals, because the emotion of him singing, I don't know, man. I kept thinking like composition wise, I didn't want to give away the big chorus on chorus 1. And I knew that, but I wasn't sure how to pull it off. And I just kept going back to what worked. And the melody worked, like Brian worked, and the atmosphere kind of worked. But even, it's like when I took the drum, and sometimes it's just drums and vocals, that works. There's like a song that goes, we go 24/7 till we're 6 feet deep. That's the actual melody. There's no notes. It's like a descending, head in the cloud and our hearts concrete, burn the whole thing down, then they got cold feet, yeah. It's like the most cocky, like, because in my head I was like, what's the most FU energy melody? And I realized no melody at all is one of the most, like, I don't give a F what you think. And I realized the most audacity melody is just drums. So it's literally just Gabe doing on drums and Brian like gang vocals singing that, and then they kick in on guitars, and it's so crazy and hard. And then another song, it's just Brian and a vocoder, and it's so emotional. The damage is done, I'm already gone, not much left to turn it back around. It's like such a cool, because I thought it was really about what he was saying. I've already found closure. It's like such a and so I stripped it down to that moment, and then it like did the thing, it did the thing. It like took my breath away, and I was like, who would do this in like a rock band? Like, and I don't know, we just messed with it till we felt like it worked. I was like, is this crazy? Am I crazy? Or is this like cool? Like, so yeah, I guess you need the confidence, but also like you do need a bit of salesmanship. And I think that goes for yourself included. And I think it gets easier when you start to do the things that are truly you and unique to your voice, because you do have one. Because you'll see them because they'll work, and they're right in front of you, man. They're automatic. Like the best ideas are right in front of you. They're like right there. I'm telling you that cut and bow down is right. It's like I have these theories about all kinds of songs. Like I have a theory in Hurricane that the real reason it hit number 1, this and that aside, there's a cool vocal chop moment. There's this crazy synth thing I came up with. Whatever, dude. The reason it hit number 1 is because Brian goes, lately. I don't give a fuck, 'cause I can't be myself when I'm with anyone. That's it. I think that line right there is the reason that became both of our first number one. So like, but I don't want to downplay. It's all a vessel, right? It's all a vehicle to accomplish one thought, right? Like to me, a song is a crystallized feeling, right? It's like one moment. And to me, it's that. Like in Hurricane, that's the moment. It's that it's not feeling okay in that exact way, right? Where people hear that and they go, not only am I not okay, but that's the exact way. That's how I feel too. And so it's like, that's why I'm saying again that the idea is king. And I say that to both take the pressure off of everyone listening and put the pressure on, because like, it's less about the fidelity of the snare just being banging and more about using the fidelity of the snare and the kick and the way that you just managed to make the sickest metalcore drum sound, let's say, to accomplish a moment, right? To create this thing where it's like only that snare drum would work there, right? And it's like you can't imagine it any other way. I can't imagine Bow Down not pausing, but there was a long period where it didn't, you know, or something. You know what I mean? It's just how these things are. And so your job is to find, and it's simple. It's simple. It's easy. It's like the timeless stuff. I'm telling you, yeah, man, like it's true. Like I want to do big stuff. Like I want to make more number one songs. And so I try to think that way. You know, I try to act like I deserve to be here and earn it every day again, the next day. And like, you know, if it excites you, it excites someone else. So it's like sometimes the exciting thing is that you recorded it, this big moment, through your phone mic, you know, and it just not just made it sound a certain way, but it became a certain way because the vibe was thus. So, you know, it's like, who's that dude? Lauv, L-A-U-V, or Lauv, or however you say his name.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
He had that big multi-billion stream song that you know that song? He recorded that on his iPhone, and there's a video of him online showing how he did it. It's his iPhone with little altar boy with a little blend and a little format shift on it. That's it. And auto-tune. And if you listen, he doesn't say this in the video, but he absolutely does the hard cut that I'm talking about. Da 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 is cut. Even if he sang it that way, you feel me? It's like the magic is happening right in front of you, and the real stuff that's making it, oof, you know, is invisible. It's right in front of you and it's invisible. It's like, so for all the like building this big moment where there's this huge this huge drum fill and it goes all the way into this into like some metal like massive snare bomb, it's not about that, even though you think it is. It's what are you saying in that moment? Why are you doing that moment? Those are the things that will ultimately make it cool. It really isn't your big snare bomb, no matter how cool, no matter how well I EQ it. Do you know what I mean? At absolute most, you're going to get another producer or another drummer like Gabe or like a metal guy go, oh, that snare was huge. But like, if it doesn't serve a purpose, you know, a better purpose for a big snare is in a breakdown, in my opinion. Dun, 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 dun. You know, yeah, you're trying to drive home an idea and a point. But if you're, you know, in a big pause holdout, it's more about why are we pausing? Is the pause like gonna have a vocal in it? Is it gonna say something? Is it gonna have a sound effect? Is it gonna mean something? Are we gonna set it up so that the absence of something is something? You know, it's like I use the phrase earn it all the time with the people I work with. I always say moments and I always say earn it. And it's like, I even wrote a song called Earn It with, and co-produced it, with the Ghost Inside guys, but that's where it comes from. It's like you can have, I like to work backwards actually. For anyone listening, here's a fun one. Like if you get really confident in yourself, make a cool moment, and then work backwards from that and figure out how you can earn that moment, right? Like maybe it is a vocoder dropout, or maybe it is this insane breakdown and you just have the breakdown. Well, you just got to start asking yourself, like in reverse, like, what is the sickest way I could set up this breakdown? Like that would make it obnoxiously heavy, you know? And like, I don't know. I wonder if people just don't think about this stuff as much as I do, but this is like all I think about, you know? Like there are bands, and I don't want to, I don't want to say this because then it sounds like I'm hating on this band. I'm like a legit huge fan of this band. And by the way, the bands that I'm like big fans of, I don't want to necessarily produce these bands because I think they are already being done so beautifully. You know what I mean? By whoever, maybe it is the band themselves. But it's these bands that are, you'll notice that. Actually, let me just open the argument up. It doesn't even have to be specific to this band. You'll notice a lot of the bigger acts all have something that's unique, right? Or a song that does something that's unique, whether it's the tonality of the song, which is 100% the mix, by the way. Well, I mean, I guess you could argue it's like the engineering and the way it was tracked, but like the mixer is 100%. You're responsible for the tone. You're responsible for how much is happening or not happening when a listener hears things. And like, I think about this a lot, but there are certain bands and genres that even when I'm making an extremely poppy song and an extremely poppy mix, there are certain ones where I want the vocal to be so clear. And this doesn't mean loud. This doesn't mean just forward and up front or loud. It means that there's not so much competing with what the vocals are doing. Like I think a song I did called Voices in My Head is a really good example of good production of a hit song, in my opinion, because it's all vocal and it's all earworms, and we say the name of the song in the hook and we sing the earworm like 50 times in the song, but you never get sick of it. The head nod of the song never stops. The voices in my head keep on telling me to da da da. Never, it just never gives. And the production is always dancing around it. Like it's always happening around the vocal in a way that lifts it, not in a way that makes your head turn, right? Like, what if in that song out of nowhere I had some crazy ass drum fill that was like, where instead of the drums just going da 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 ba into the chorus, and keep in mind this is Luke Holland, like he's capable of doing, you know, whatever he wants, but he also understands when to pull attention and when to lift up other things, you know? Sometimes the right fill when you're Luke Holland into a chorus is da 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 da, that's it, straight up. And this again, like you'd think the musician in you wants to do the thing that is like enough for a equally talented person to go, that's a good fill, because we like care what other people think, but it's not in service of the idea or the song, because you're listening to the singer and they're singing and they're building and then the kid, and then we do some triplet fill where he goes and hits some, it's like, bruh, it's like you're listening, you know what I mean?
It's not serving.
Your gaze like turns to the drums for a second. What? And then you look back and now you're in a chord. It's like, and it's hard. It's hard because how do you do big songs but not make a name for yourself? But also, and right? And this is like the challenge that I kind of want to say. It's like, that is your quest, right? Your quest is actually simpler than you think, but like you mix something and you put the idea forward. Like, you know, in the case of Falling in Reverse, the vocals are freaking sick. Like Ronnie is sick. What he's saying is awesome. It's interesting. He has good melodies. He has great delivery. He knows how to emote. He knows how to make you like, he knows how to be operatic or like, it's like, that's what you need to be listening to, you know? And this is no disrespect to other bands. I just think bands are different. Like even Linkin Park, for example. I don't think that's the case with Linkin Park. I don't think that was the case with Chester in Linkin Park. I think Linkin Park is more about the band Linkin Park, right? It is about the drums too, and the guitars too. And I think that is a little less true with like a band like Falling in Reverse. Typically. Now, obviously we have songs where that is, you know, a song like Ronald is like very much about drums and guitars. And that's a chance for us to have a different side to the band. But I just mean like in general, the centerpiece is the story and the lyrics of what Ronnie is telling, and the music is designed to lift that up. Whereas there are like, yeah, bands that are like more trying to have, it's more about the musicality, right? You know what I'm saying? It's not meant to be a diss. It's like a different, yeah. So anyways, to zoom out again, yeah, intent, man, is everything. Like when you're doing everything, it actually will make it easier though, is what you'll find. Like if you know that the song that you're doing is trying to be a big anthem, like, oh, we're making a sports anthem. I just want to do a big anthem. I want something that people will sing along to at a show. Cool. That's it. That can be the whole mission statement, beginning and end. And it's just going to grow from there. Okay, maybe the song is called Won't Forget It, right? And then the hook is, I'm blah, 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 and you won't forget it, right? And you work that, I'm just making crap up, but like you work backwards and you work backwards, but you've got a direction that everyone's going in. Like I can name that song right now because we already have the concept. You know what I mean? And do you know how valuable it is to not name a song like some stupid joke name, which I know everyone does? Like you need to literally never do that again. As funny as it is, oh, we have a song called butt farts or something. It's like, I mean, it's just you being afraid to do what you know you have to do, which is come up with a killer song. And I would suggest just doing it now on this song instead of, you know, delaying it for your next song or your next song. You know, make this your hit song.
Absolutely.
Not your next one. Like sit down literally and make a song, or, you know, I guess if you're mixing, it doesn't, you know, I don't know. A lot of people listening are probably doing all of these things, I imagine, or they're in a band and they just want to know how to mix their demos better. And like, I know how this stuff goes. You can benefit a lot from taking each part of it serious. I'm not saying you can't have fun and like goofing off. Sure. Sometimes you put the goof off name and it works, but I would try to make sure it could always be real. Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times, you know, like the song name ends up serving the song. Like the song Popular Monster was called Popular Monster before. Well, I can't really say that because that's not fair. Ronnie had he had pretty much all of those vocals for a long time. Like he had been basically working on that song like his whole life. But there's many songs where like the name came before anything, you know? Like it's so crazy. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. My band, I remember I wanted to make a super hype song for my band and I was like, what's something that you would click play on without even hearing it? And I came up with this song called Kill Everything. And I was like, dude, if I saw a band that I loved put out a song called, and they were a heavy band or something, and the song was called Kill Everything, you'd be a little curious. Like, you know, it's like, you know, if I'm like a Lorna Shore fan and they put out a song called Kill Everything, I'm going to be like, I'm pretty excited. Like, you know, it's like, so anyways, that if you're not doing that, that's a missed opportunity again. You know, it's like every single piece of it, if it's all hasn't the same intention and it's all pointed the same way, it's going to be a more poignant and cohesive. I mean, that's what a hit is. That's what, you know, even if the idea is slightly more abstract, Katy Perry, like Teenage Dream is a hit song and she ended up naming her whole album that. And then, okay, well, what is Teenage Dream? Well, she tells you through the chorus, right? So that's what a hit song does. So now you take everything that I've just talked about and you can make the rock or the pop or the alternative or the metal equivalent of a hit song using the tools of popular music and the tools of, you know, you can still have riffs, you can still have breakdowns, you can still, and so I really like that. I don't know, you don't have to be like me, but I like being the pop guy because I am really a pop guy at the end of the day, who loves rock and metal and loves also mixing because I like to make things hit super hard. So like, yeah, I like genres like EDM and metal and rock where I can be dramatic. And I like bands that want to make big statement songs and they want to shock their fans and they want to feel new again. And so, yeah, I'm where I need to be. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm with the right people and I'm working on the right projects and yeah. And then I'm setting up the work sessions in this way where I'm like, let's have a 6-song name. Let's like, what if we like made a playlist? And I don't know. I just like to fall backwards into inspiration now instead of like, all right, let's try to write. Yeah, I'll write a riff and you write a riff and then we decide which riff is better. It's like, you know, you might get two rungs up the ladder. I would like to fall from the top and grab the third rung from the top of the ladder. You know, it's like, it's a different way of creating. I don't know.
Of course.
So
it's really interesting. Like it's interesting to hear how you approach your writing and how something as simple as like a single word or a phrase can just like spawn this whole idea.
Can I ask, I mean, do you, okay, so I know that people are inspired by like cool, words, I guess. I'm probably not alone in that, but does anyone get like that inspired? Like I get so inspired by like a good name that I can envision the whole song like in my head. Like if I think of a song right now and I just look at something and I call it like I call it like Last Man Standing. I don't know, that does something for me, right? There's like an emotion attached to the words for me. Are you that way? Do you have like lists of
I do think I'm that way because like I wouldn't consider myself a good songwriter at all. Like I don't consider myself a songwriter.
Well,
But
I'm sure that's not true.
no, but to me, when I do think about songwriting, I do think about, and this is something I try to focus on a lot with the bands that I work with, is like I do try to focus on like what is that statement you're trying to make? What is the line? What is like, and I agree with what you're saying about like kind of like reverse engineering it. Like if we have something that is a powerful line, how can we like create that emotion? How do we like really dig into like
Well, that's
that
my
statement
favorite
there?
mixing. Like this is dumb, but like the newest or the most recent video I did or that came out of mine was a Fall Your Verse track. It's the first track on his new album. It's called Prequel. The first song, it's called Ronald, and there's a part on it where it's building in intensity and Ronnie's rapping and he's building. He says, "Light the match," and I add a "watch it burn," and it gets like more intense. Really simple, obvious example. But just to illustrate my point, I love that type of mixing. I love that type of production because it tells me you're thinking three dimensions about what you're doing, right? Like you're trying to tell a story. You're trying to take what he's saying and accentuate it. And sometimes it is as simple. Like that's like more of a, who would do that? Like Eminem would do that. Eminem, Dr. Dre is a very, that combo of like, I'm going to say this thing. Dr. Dre hits it with a sound effect. When blah, 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 and you hear like, a squeeze sound and you hear this like duck, like a duck, like a rubber ducky, they'll like, to make it funny and to paint a more vivid picture. It's like setting that does do a lot for the tonality and the mood of the song. I mean, people like metal bands put metal ass quotes as live intros because it does something for the mood in the room right before you kick. It's like, you have to set the tone. Like, really, like there's an intro track on True Power because I always wanted that. I always pictured, I don't know, you couldn't just start There's Fear in Letting Go. It couldn't just start. The mood of the world had to be established, even if it's just 40 seconds of something. It just worked way better. It just works way better with the buildup. But who wants to sit through a massive intro, But it just is what it is. So we picked the lesser of two evils, and you have the version that starts right away, and you have the version that is the full way it is meant to be experienced. But with mixing, you're absolutely telling the story. I mean, it's kind of like in video. It's like, in some ways, I know you could attribute this to also like an editor or a mastering engineer, but I would say it's probably the most true with a mixer, that you are kind of like the editor of the movie and the color corrector of the movie. Like, you're like, how does it look? How does it feel when I press play? Like, where does it take me? Okay, I know the footage. I know what happens in the movie because I was given the movie maybe to mix by someone else, but like, this scene is really sad. I probably shouldn't be having all this like bright daylight vibe happening with my music. I should probably have a little more of a mood, right? A little more heavy, like something that you feel more than you hear, It's like I didn't have everything to do with this, so I don't want to take full credit, but I did have a lot to do with the Brit. One of the things I'm most proud of that kind of fits this description is the bridge of an I Prevail song called Breaking Down, and it's on Trauma. And it was, there's a lot of things happening there, a lot of lessons I could give, but it was a really cool experiment where Brian, the singer, really had been, and still does in some ways, deal with a lot of true depression. So it's a true song. And this is at a time when I had just discovered the idea of writing songs about very simple concepts, like not trying to cover too much ground. Like I used to always write a song. Like if I would have written this song more like a few years prior, it would have been like, here's a song about depression, and I'm going to tell you in all these ways that I'm depressed, and I'm going to be really articulate and cool and poetic, but I'm also going to tell you that I'm going to overcome it, and I'm going to be, and now I don't do that. Now I don't do the part where I say it's going to be okay. If I'm writing a song about being depressed, the song is just about depression, and it ends depressed too. You know what I mean? I find it makes the song experience way richer when you try to you try to crystallize a feeling. It's better. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to write a song that even if you like filtered the whole song, if you put like a low pass filter on the whole song to where you can't hear the words, it feels a bit like depression to me. It's like drony. It's lots of like open one. The lyrics are so dark, like hate every single second, minute, hour, every day. It's like in the way it's delivered, it's very like monotone and dead inside. And the video is him just he's just doing all these mundane things. Like he's just like doing his laundry and just staring at it. And he's just like, it's what depression actually feels like. So in the bridge, it's really drony and it gets down to this delicate moment. And keep in mind, at this point, they were a very inspiring band. And all the other songs too, Bow Down, like, you don't know me, like you cannot, but this song, no, this is a different goal, man. And so, and this is true to Brian too. So I'm really trying to encapsulate the things that he feels and he goes through. And we're talking about him being I'm not depressed. So I'm just trying to step into his world. And I'm like, this medication, it does this. It makes me feel good in this way and euphoric, but euphoria is not happiness. And how do you do that with music? Like, so it's pretty dark because the bridge is this long minute plus buildup where it's this long drone and it's just this slowly building heartbeat rhythm. And it's the lead singer, Brian, and he's just saying, I don't really like myself. And that's like such a dark way to say it. Do you know what I mean? It's like such a real way to say it. That's like how a real person would say it, like if they were truly depressed and it boiled down to it and they would be like, I don't really like myself. It's like, here's the guy that's supposed to be on the pedestal, right? He's on stage. If you're a fan at a show, you're seeing him on stage. You're literally looking up to this guy. But he's crumbled into this small ball and no one is playing anything. No one in the band's playing music on stage. And it's just a blackout with a spotlight on Brian. I don't really like myself. It builds. It builds. And it gets more, I don't really like myself. And it's just this bit. I think I'm breaking down. The song ends. No last chorus. No, it's going to be okay, resolve in the music. Because sometimes it's just not okay. And I'll never forget.
I think it makes people like actually relate to those emotions a lot more, because anyone who has suffered with depression is going to know those feelings, but not everyone is in that headspace of like, it's going to get better. So like, it does create that, like that connection to people. It's a really cool way of doing it.
Some people listen to, when they're sad, they need to listen to some happy music, like, let's get out of this funk. Let's remember why life is dope. Like there's always something to be happy about. There's always something to celebrate. And then some people, when they're sad, they need to listen to sad music and they need to go, I'm not alone. Like I'm not, it's like maybe they're sad because they feel there's a helplessness associated with it. There's like something feels wrong. I don't fit in. But then all of a sudden you don't feel like that as much as you did because you're not alone. So like you need different songs for different types of people. And I don't mean to get overly emotional because it's not even my journey. Like this is Brian's journey, but like this stuff is so real to me. And it's like, I'm right back in the room with him. It's crazy. And to try to crystallize that, and to just capture that is so fun. It's such a cool job, you guys. I just think mixing is all of that, right? Like there's lots of low rumbly energy in that part. There's not a lot of stuff happening. And the stuff that is happening in the highs, that's up where the vocal register is happening, it's kind of constant and it's kind of faint, it's kind of like a background drone. and it's kind of like that ringing in your ear almost, the back of your head getting louder. It's like, yeah. So just to answer your mixing question, it's like the mixing complements the moment, the lyrics complement the moment, the vocal delivery complements the moment, and then the composition of the song itself. You know, again, I have a theory that the way a song ends tells you how to feel about it. So when it ends right there, I think I'm breaking down. It's like you just ended right as he's breaking down. You know what I mean? Like in real life, it's like, wow. It's like, and not everyone wants that visceral of an experience. And so I do think you can also listen to the song without having to get as involved in it as I am. Obviously, I'm just trying to articulate and re-portray like how it is when I'm there creating it, because that's how it feels. Like literally, it just tells me what to do. You know, like if I'm a mixer and I got to open that song and mix it, that tells me what to do. I go, okay, I need to make this thing sound like so like hopeless. Like the joy is sucked out of the room, you know? And it's like, but that can be different emotions. Like I just did a movie trailer thing where I re-envisioned, I can't say what song it is because we haven't even gotten, the band doesn't even know yet, but we have to get their rights. But like it's I re-envisioned a song that is like a really popular song, but into like a hopeless version of it. And it's the same chorus and it's the same lyrics, but they hit differently now, you know? And it's neat how that works. I just say that to illustrate the point. It's like, I was like, what is, you know, for this trailer, for what's happening, what I know is happening in the trailer, it's basically a trailer where you see a bunch of people like gearing up and you're like, oh, it's about to go down. And you think it's going to be all like, you're about to watch them like go super hard. And you quickly realize at the end that they get destroyed. And you go, oh, I was following the people who lose. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's so there's this dark twist at the end and there's this hopelessness and it's just in the chords and in the music, you know, that you try, and in the mix, like how you try to establish that. Because I didn't write the vocals or the song or anything. I just tried to reimagine what was already there. But if you're good at that, if you get into that type of stuff, you can tell whatever story it is you want to tell, like really effectively, and you can be very visceral or very like simple, you know, like some hits are just easy. Like sometimes like I said, sometimes you don't want to think so much. Like I love those songs too. You know, it doesn't always have to be a deep cut. It doesn't always have to be like about depression or yeah,
it just comes back down to like that initial goal with the song and what kind of statement you're trying to make. And dude, this has been like, I've really enjoyed this conversation because I think that it is it's you do a great job.
I'm sure it's different. I know we didn't talk about plugins and such, which I also love, and I have a lot of
I could chat with, dude, I have so many things I'd love to ask you about, like your mixes and stuff, but for time purposes, we'll skip that for now. But we'll have you back. But I do really like it, to me, when I listen to your productions, everything you're talking about here are the things that I do connect to and that I resonate with, and all those moments, and like the way the lyrics tie into the mixing side of it, like I hear all that, and so I'm glad to know that it wasn't a happy
Me too,
accident.
though. I don't know. I just one person. I just do it the way I do it. Like when I have other people for writing sessions, I'm like, what do other people? How do other people do it? I really don't know. Like because no one taught me. It's not like I like, you know, like there's a formal way I figured out to create a song. I just know what works for me, and I know I've also learned by looking at people's faces and stuff when I talk and when I suggest certain things, like what is a bit different and unique to me and what is, you know, normal, what they encounter everywhere. But until you saying those things, I genuinely don't know, man. I don't leave my house. Like, I know I love what I do and I know it lands on somebody, but like this is the stuff I really care about. This is my art. My art is like all the extra stuff in there, you know, like I Prevail and we would have conversations about stuff. Like I know they've talked about some of them in videos, but like I would ask them, I'd be like, what is the most timeless, iconic metal riff of all time that the most people on planet Earth know, whether or not they're a metal person? We'll argue about it. And eventually we all decided that it was probably Beethoven. Like we decided probably dun 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 is like probably one of the most iconic heavy riffs, you know, arguably. So we put it in a song. So like on the new album, there's a song called not Self-Destruction. It's Judgment Day. But the pre-chorus of Judgment Day goes, "Wa-na-na-na, wa-na-na-na." And it's literally because we thought it'd be awesome to put Beethoven in a song, but no one knows. It's not like, how would we ever, address that to a fan? But like, I do think that if the songs are just made having fun and there's a cool purpose that basically gets accomplished, and I also think it's cool that you compromise along the way. Like, even if it seems like, I don't know, maybe you thought the song was better before, but Brian or the vocalist feels strongly about this or that, and they really fight for it. Well, then let them fight for it. It's probably, like, I'm just one dude. I don't have all the ideas or even any of the good ones, but like, yeah, just be open to stuff and make a cool like amalgamation of like good ideas and good people and like good times. And I swear it comes through the other side. It's like in the listenability of it. It really does.
Yeah, I agree, man. Dude, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this and for sharing so much about your process. If people want to learn more about you, like maybe follow your work online or maybe even like reach out and work with you somehow, like what's the best way for them to do that?
Dude, I actually talk to people all the time. As long as people are patient, a little patient with me replying, I'm actually fairly, like, I get back to, most everybody. My email is just tyler@tylersmyth.com, and you can just email me. That's also my website, by the way, just my name, tylersmyth.com, and it is spelled with a Y, so it's SMYTH. But that's my website. That is my email. And that's also my Instagram and stuff, which is probably the social media I'm quote unquote most active on, which isn't saying a whole lot, but you can absolutely reach me there and it does go straight to me. So you just remind me, I need to update my website really bad. It's a little out of date, but there's you can see some of the stuff I've done on there. It's not horribly current, but yeah, I've got like a lot of new stuff put on there actually, which is cool. Always exciting. But yeah, please reach out and please follow me. And I genuinely love talking about this stuff. And I like knowing the bands that are coming up. I like knowing the people that are coming up. Yeah, if you've ever met someone who knows me or has talked to me, like they'll say the same. I just like to be a part of the community. So like, please don't hesitate to reach out or say what's up or ask a question or anything. And thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Seriously, this is super cool. What you do is awesome. Like, that's why I said it's a cool career. Even if it's not your career, it's a cool thing to do because no matter what you think, not many people do it. And even less are good at the tools and familiar enough with what they're doing to really do get hit with like a job and be able to deliver on that job. And everyone, by the way, thinks they're not ready for the first job they get and they do it anyways. Trust me. It's like, I don't know. I'm just excited for anyone listening and encouraging that this skill will not only serve you in probably the ways you intend it to, like maybe your band or like maybe just to have like be your own boss or something, but even ones you probably haven't seen yet. It's a really great career field. Really awesome creatively. There's just so many applications. Just excited. I don't know. I love to talk to y'all. So please reach out and be in touch with me. We can do cool things together. There's no reason we can't.
Love it. Right on, dude. Well, thanks again. So that was my episode with Tyler Smyth, and you don't need me to tell you that guy clearly cares about everything he's doing. He's super jazzed about it, super pumped, and you could tell he puts a lot of care and effort into the way he writes songs, the way he edits them, records them, mixes them. All of that stuff comes together, and he gave a ton of great examples of how he marries his mixing techniques to emphasize the lyrical content or how he structures songs to focus on the intention of those songs. If you haven't heard any of his music yet, definitely check out the I Prevail records. They're incredible. I love that band. The Falling in Reverse stuff is really, really cool too. Like, he's got a lot of great work in his catalog, so definitely check it out. And I love how he dove into the fact that, sometimes the things that make the biggest impact in the song can be things as simple as just muting your tracks. Like, sometimes we think we need to go crazy with all these effects and reverbs and delays and whatnot, but sometimes silence is the biggest thing. And I know we talked about it in this episode, but if you ever listen to I Prevail's song called Bow Down, like those silences that he creates in those tracks and the way he edits the vocals, man, they are impactful. So definitely check out that track if you haven't heard any of his work. But yeah, I just love his focus on making sure that people connect with the songs in multiple ways. And it's really just tackling a whole bunch of different emotions and senses. And I think that is what makes his mixes and his productions in general just sound so exciting. So Yeah, I was really pumped to have him on the podcast, and I hope that you found that episode helpful and inspiring because definitely it's given me a ton of things that I'm thinking about now for the mixes that I'm working on currently, and how can I infuse some of these little production tricks into those tracks to make them even bigger and just get people into the song a little bit more. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and I hope you did too. Now, that said, if you did enjoy this episode and you're not already subscribed to the podcast, please make sure to do that. That way, you're notified about all new episodes as they go live each and every Wednesday morning. And if you're listening to this episode and thinking, I want to implement all this cool stuff that Tyler talked about, but I don't know how to use my tools properly in my DAW, or I don't know how to create the source tones that I want, or how to edit my tracks the way he talks about. If you're interested in getting one-on-one help with your productions to help you create your vision and actually execute it and make it come out of your speakers, that is exactly what I focus on inside of my coaching program, Amplitude. Inside of that program, I work one-on-one with my students to help make sure that your vision for your song comes to life and that you gain a strategy and a workflow that is repeatable and allows you to make your productions with ease and get the pro results that you hear in your head. So if you're interested in learning more about this program, make sure to visit masteryourmix.com/amplitude, and you can find all the details on that page there. And then I'd love to learn more about you. I'd love to know more about your productions, what you're currently working on, what's working for you, what's not working for you, what you're feeling stuck with, to see if I can help you. Inside of this program, I only work with people who I truly believe I can help. So if we get on a call and it sounds like you're the type of person I can help, then I'd love to invite you into this program and work one-on-one with you to help make your visions come to life and to get your song sounding pro so that you can ultimately release it and make a bigger impact in the world with your songs. So once again, make sure to visit masteryourmix.com/amplitude, and you can find all the details there. Last but not least, I want to give a very special shout out to our podcast sponsor, Samply. Make sure to check them out online at samply.app and get 3 months free off any plan when you use the coupon code MYM. And with that said, we've reached the end of this episode. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I can't wait to chat with you in the next one. Talk soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Master Your Mix podcast. Please make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and leave a review. If you have any questions or comments for the podcast, send an email to questions@masteryourmix.com. And for more information on how to create pro recordings from your home studio, visit masteryourmix.com.